All right, let's give you more on that. We are joined by eNCA's Samkele Maseko, and for analysis of the political coalitions, we are also joined by Dr. Koma from the Milpark Business School. Thank you so much for coming through, gentlemen. Samkele, let me start with you. Almost 2 years since these political parties went into formalized coalitions, in some instances supported in terms of key votes by the EFF in these metros. So what is their report? I mean, we sort of focus on what happens around Mongameli Bobani, the firing of the former MMC here in Johannesburg by Herman Mashaba, who was a member of the IFP, Rabelani Dagada's firing. Are they saying that despite all of that we've been focusing on, everything is working well?
They are saying that everything is rosy. It's all good in these metros, despite on the issues that we've been focusing on of Mongameli Bobana and of late in Ngababanga in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, and that all is well in a municipality like the capital city in Tshwane, where we've not had any negative reports apart from the issue of Okamp, who many perceive as the Hlaudi of the Democratic Alliance, who had a highly influential position within that metro, but without having proper qualifications to be in that position in Johannesburg. They're saying that they've been able to pass a pro-poor budget, where the EFF first had its grievances with the budget. Executive Mayor Herman Mashaba first tabled. He had to go back and revise it with the assistance of the Economic Freedom Fighters, who then passed the budget. They're saying all is well, but the only issue they have, and they can't even describe it, they describe it as a unique situation, is the issue of Nelson Mandela Bay Metro with Mongameli Bobane, him voting with the ANC, whom they perceive as the opposition in that metro.
So did they say anything then, Samkele, about the extent to which this can be replicated at a provincial and a national level? Because we are headed for that key election in 2019, and a few years ago, if you had asked this question, and the answer would have been very simple. They were even calling it Project 2019. Are they still talking about Project 2019 even now?
The word Project 2019 never came up into this press briefing. All they said is that should the matter arise in the 2019 general elections, after the election, after the results, that's when they will talk to form a coalition government. But the interesting part here, Tulasizwe, you've got Bantu Holomisa, the UDM leader, who's saying that he will not sit alongside the coalition government until the DA-led administration and government in Nelson Mandela Bay and the national leadership comes out and apologizes to Mongameli Bobane, the former deputy mayor of that metro, who was accused of corruption and wrongdoing in that specific municipality. Bantu Holomisa saying he will not be sitting alongside Mmusi Maimane or any DA leader until that PwC report is brought out in the open, which he says cleared Mongameli Bobane of any wrongdoing.
Yeah, in fact, he wasn't at that media briefing. What do you make of this all, Dr. Koma? Do we have coalitions or do we have collisions between these political parties?
Yeah, it's more of arrangement based on convenience. But Tulasizwe, remember, this coalition politics or arrangements, it's a new experiment, especially at the local level. Now, this is what needs to then be understood by these political parties. You can't have a big brother or a big sister in this coalition government, because it's about how do we find a common ground, but very important for the interest of the community that we are serving.
In fact, so, let me jump in there as you use that word big brother. That's exactly the word that the IFP used when Herman Mashaba expelled Mzobanzi Ntuli in Johannesburg, and when Mongameli Bobane was removed in Nelson Mandela Bay. That's the phrase that was used by the UDM.
Yeah, exactly. Hence, we need a new set of skills for these councillors. What do you mean by that? One, consensus building skill, ability to persuade your fellow or your peer within the council, because the days of two-thirds majority by decision making are gone. Show of hands, gone. So this is what they need to start learning, to say it's high time we even deal with the issue of non-partisan politics for the sake of, one, addressing and prioritizing the basic needs of these communities, and also sticking to their constitutional obligations, which is to pass bylaws, to pass the budget, which they've done, that's what they're saying, and adopting the IDP. So it's about serving the needs of the community. And it's interesting with this coalition politics, because currently in KZN, you now have a new municipality, which was established in 2016, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma municipality, which has been placed under Section 139, hardly 2 years in their existence, because they failed to appoint the municipal manager and the senior managers since January this year. And that paralyzes decision-making and planning in terms of also implementing the basic services programs of the municipality.
Not to mention, Samkele, that we have a situation here, even here in Johannesburg. Mogale City was also one of those municipalities that the opposition took over, but things started going horribly wrong in terms of them being able to stick together as a coalition.
Yes, it does raise a lot of issues. For instance, if you look at how the ANC ended up getting control of Mogale City with Patrick Lupet, who was the former speaker, now being the mayor there, you look at how the opposition failed to pass a budget and they had to go to a by-election. It goes to how coalition governments and different political interests in these coalitions become a huge factor. For instance, you look at the happenings currently in Nelson Mandela Bay. You can't shy away from the fact that Mongameli Bobane is a staunch ally of Bantu Holomisa when it comes to UDM intra-politics. And when it comes to the Democratic Alliance, it's a fact. Mmusi Maimane and Ethel Trollip are in the same leadership of the Democratic Alliance at a national level. So whatever affects Ethel Trollip will have an impact on the way of thinking of Mmusi Maimane as a leader of the DA, because he's an important figure when it comes to intra-party politics within the Democratic Alliance.
How murky then are the waters going to be, Dr. Koma, in as far as coalition politics is concerned, given the dynamics that Samkele sketches? Yeah. He's absolutely right, isn't he? The ructions inside the Democratic Alliance can't just be, without impact on what happens in 2019. How do you form a coalition with a partner who's weak?
Yeah, exactly. And is it a coalition because we want to dislodge the ANC? Or is it a coalition because we want to prioritize the needs of the community that we're serving? So these are the dynamics that these parties are beginning to grapple with, because it's more like we went into coalition because we did not like Party A because of what Musiwali Kota is now saying, that you had these people who did not have the right skills who were deployed in some of these municipalities. But Tulas, the sense I'm getting, it is as if some of these coalition arrangements were imposed upon these councillors. Because you can see these are the big political leaders who are talking that we seem to be doing well in terms of this coalition arrangement in our metros. But we're not getting the voice of the councillors on the ground to say, within the council setting, this is what we seem to be finding prudent in terms of level of engagement and agreeing on some of these political priorities.
Were these opposition parties in a way sort of defanged by the removal of former President Jacob Zuma? He was a unifying figure for them, wasn't he? And now you have an ANC that is looking to sort of revive itself. At the same time now, they sort of have to now, the opposition parties in coalition governments, see how they entrench themselves in those metros and possibly grow despite the attempts by the ANC to revive themselves and to, quote-unquote, self-correct?
Yeah, this is what they may seem to be creating, allowing the ANC now to regroup and also to go back to their constituencies in terms of articulating what will be their agenda come 2019 elections. And you're right, it seems the removal of Jacob Zuma seemed to have caught most of these parties off guard, because they've built a narrative around him to say rule of law, not part of his agenda. Issues of corruption linked to his administration. So he's gone. And as the new president now speaks about the new dawn, how do they find a space within this new dawn?
And soon they'll, and as time goes by, they now have to be judged by their own track record in government. Exactly. It's not going to be good enough to simply say, hey, we are not the ANC. Yeah.
Interestingly, that point of corruption, Bantu Holomisa, speaking to Vuyomvugo earlier on today, says that you can't say, as Musiwali Kota, that Bob Mongameli Bobane is voting for ANC corruption, when on the other hand, you are blindsided by the DA corruption. So he's seemingly signaling or indicating that there may be corruption on the DA side, which brings about the question, what is the basis of the coalition government post the era of Jacob Zuma? And also, just on that era of Jacob Zuma and this purported new dawn of the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, those who are largely still at local government sphere were that of the era of former President Jacob Zuma. What has changed so much in the past 6 or 7 months that we've seen a warrant or or a change of heart by the likes of Bantu Holomisa when it comes to Cyril Ramaphosa. He's been very vocal about him and his leadership style and what he represents. But that also brings about the question, you've also had similar appointments by the DA administration that was done by the ANC-led government in the era of Hlaudi Motswaneng at the SABC. You've got Okamp in the DA in Tshwane.
Right, Dr. Koma, let me give you the last take here. Bring in then the element of the economic freedom fighters. At a national level, they are a 6% party, but we saw the kind of impact they had in the 2016 local government elections. I mean, when you looked at that map, at the end of the election season, there were significant portions of the country that were significantly red. What is their role going to 2019 when we're talking provincial and national politics and that possibility of coalition governments? So far, they've stayed out of coalitions and said we will vote strategically. Would a similar approach work in their favor? Do you foresee them sort of abandoning that approach when provincial and national power is concerned?
Exactly, you're right. Yes, 2016 they had an impact, but they did not win a single municipality. But they remain a deal breaker. They're a small party, but they set their agenda. And to some extent, it appears the ruling party or the governing party seems to be aligning with some of their policy positions. So they're enjoying that space. And come 2019, I think they will still play that deal-making role in case the ANC falls below the 50% electoral outcome. They will have to speak to them because they seem to be having commonality in terms of position on, for example, the issue of land and also economic strategies that needs to be adopted by the government.
And the word is enjoying that role, isn't it, Dr. Koma? Because, for instance, they can take credit for those programs that, they supported, the insourcing of security guards in Johannesburg, but can actually stand outside when they want and say, hey, this municipality is messing up, Samkele.
The reality of it is that you've got many DA leaders in some quarters and in their corners who are basically saying that the EFF may be running Johannesburg and the DA mayor may be just the face. Because you've got a lot of concerns from DA leaders who are saying that the EFF has had a lot of key appointments in the Johannesburg City Council. You've got the nice relationship between Councillor Herman Mashaba and the Democrat and the economic freedom fighters.
In fact, to cut in there, Samkele, I remember this iconic quote from Julius Malema, who was saying, "Oh, that's our mayor." He was saying, actually, the Herman Mashaba we didn't want. That's our guy.
That's our guy. Yeah.
But just to end it off, on my part, I would say that even today, Muswali Kota raised a concern that the economic freedom fighters seems to be 1 foot in the coalition and 1 foot out, which that 1 foot, he says, may be signaling that they are in talks with Luthuli House.
No, because they did not sign the pact. Remember, they are not party to the signing. They're not bound by that. They are outside that arrangement. Hence, they're enjoying that. If you say Mashaba has failed, they are immune.
Bantu Holomisa and the UDM, they certainly seem to be slowly moving to the margins of this coalition. On paper, they remain coalition partners, but in performance, they are not. This was the second media briefing where they were not there. I remember there was one here in Johannesburg a few months ago, and today they were not there. And simply, Bantu Holomisa says he will not continue to sit side by side with these people. What does this mean then for their role in 2019? Will they be the biggest losers, or will the coalition be poorer for it?
Yeah, no, the UDM, my sense is that they will do well, especially with the current corruption project they're running for the PIC. Because people are now buying into that to say, we thought state capture is about state-owned enterprises, and these are the usual suspects. But now with the PIC revelations, we're beginning to get a sense that there is rot that has been taking place there, and the UDM leader is doing well in terms of unraveling that and using the media platforms to expose the scourge of corruption at the PIC, because we didn't expect that.
Strap yourselves in. We're headed for very interesting political times. Thank you so much. eNCA's Samkele Maseko and Dr. Koma from the Milpark Business School, unpacking issues around local government elections and local government coalitions.